Well, hello there, my friend. Once again, this is Drummer Daily. I'm so happy you could join me. I'm trying something out new today. Well, I'm trying out a lot of new things today. First thing I'm trying out very simply is I'm making myself a cup of coffee while I record this podcast. It's about 2 in the afternoon when I'm recording this, and this is gotta be honest with you, it's a 3 cup of coffee kind of day. I've been getting up extra early. Which I know for some of you this may not seem so early, but to a musician, it's early. I've been getting up at 5:30 every morning because I've just got so much to do in the day, all things that I'm excited about, that I need the extra time. And plus, it's spring break for my son this week, but normally I like to get up and get a couple of hours worth of work done before he wakes up, and we got to get ready for school and everything, and there's just so many different things going on that it's really nice. Anyway, I've been wearing myself out today, and so I'm like, you know what, I really want to record this podcast, but I also am so tired. I need a cup of coffee, a 3rd cup of coffee for the day. So you're going to hear me making the various sounds of making a V60 pour over coffee. I got some nice counterculture coffee here that I'm making. I did already grind it at least, so you're not going to have to hear my coffee grinder running while I record this episode. Another new thing that I'm trying today is I switched podcast hosting providers. So hopefully to you, the listener, my friend, you are not going to notice anything different at all. It's going to be exactly the same as it always is. But for me, switching providers helped me do a lot of things that were taking a lot of time. It's making things a lot simpler for me. Hopefully, it'll make the player a little easier to use if you listen on my website, danielhadaway.com. But also, it'll just make everything a lot more efficient for me, which means hopefully I'll do more of these more often, which I think is the goal all along. Oh, by the way, I don't know if I ever mentioned this in the podcast either, but I have all of my episodes. They're going up on YouTube as well. So if you just search for me, Daniel Hadaway, on YouTube, or maybe, I think my username is just Daniel Hadaway on there. So if you go check that out, if you like to consume content on YouTube, you can listen to this podcast there as well. Now, keep in mind also that it's just audio. There's no video on the podcast. So it's just this kind of animated image that plays while the video or while the audio plays. So you can check that out as well. And I'm also working on getting the podcast on Spotify. There's a couple of steps to take to do that. So my goal is to be everywhere you could possibly want me. I'm actually working on creating an Alexa skill as well for Amazon for the Echo devices. So anyway, trying to get everywhere you could possibly imagine me to be. But anyway, today is not about any of that stuff. I just wanted to throw that out there because that's what's going on in my world right now. What I do want to talk about is I was listening to a podcast this morning, and I listened to a bunch of different, they're not all music or drumming related or anything like that. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of books. I'm always trying to get smarter and better at all kinds of things, kind of develop myself. And that stuff pays off because, for example, you're listening to this podcast. At some point, you found me some way, and that's probably due to some kind of marketing that I did, that I learned about when I read in a book somewhere. So anyway, I'm learning all the time. And so I was listening to a podcast this morning I think it was when I was making my first cup of coffee. And the guy in the podcast, it's a marketing podcast or something, he was talking about how, he was obsessed with learning about this one other person who was really successful. And so he studied this guy and tried to learn all about what he did and everything. And anytime he did this guy he was watching did something different, he knew. He's like, oh, he changed that about how he does this or that. Wonder why he did that. And he'd kind of research it. I was like, man, that guy was really obsessed with this other guy. And I was like, you know what? That's actually kind of true about me. And in music and specifically drummers. When I was a kid, I'm trying to think back, I was obsessed, I think, as much with the idea of like live concerts being performed. I went to my first concert when I was pretty young. And I remember being obsessed with like the lighting design and the sound and the stage design and the music, all of it. And even to this day, my wife rolls her eyes because if there is live music being played on the TV, I am watching it. I don't care what style of music it is. It doesn't matter to me. I love watching music being performed live, no matter what. Now, I'll make some really poor choices sometimes. She's not a fan of all genres of music, and I guess I'm not really either. But it doesn't matter. If it's live, I'm watching it. Anyway, all of that to say that my preoccupation and obsession with live music meant that I always definitely knew about certain drummers that were kind of my heroes and ones that I tried to mimic. And thankfully, because I was also so preoccupied with the music overall, I didn't get so obsessed with a lot of technical drummers, although many drummers, you included, might like to watch certain drummers and follow what they do. But I think it's valuable for anyone to I want to say obsessed, but that's not really, that sounds unhealthy. What I'm suggesting is that you should take a deep dive on some drummers and what they specifically do and how they play. So if you can find a bunch of YouTube videos of a certain drummer and really start to take in and consume all the drumming that they've put out or all the work they've done, and really start to understand what they do. And I mean that in an individual level. So I would say pick out a drummer, pick out one drummer, and make that the person that you're going to study for a while. A lot of adults don't do this anymore. Kids do that. They love, my son has everything memorized that he's ever heard about the Nashville Predators hockey team. Now we don't watch a ton of hockey games, but he loves the Nashville Predators. And you ask him what number, PK Subban is or whatever, he's going to know. He knows every piece of information. Now, as an adult, I might have to hear that stuff 15 times, but he has an easier job at retaining information about a specific subject he's interested in. As adults, we don't do so much of that, and I think that's a shame because my obsession with music and with live music and with certain drummers fueled me to get better at my instrument. And I think that's something that we all could do. But here's what I want you to do, and this is where I'm going with this podcast. As a teenager especially, I never had much shame in trying to copy some other drummer. And it was because I knew that I was young and whatever other drummer I was looking at was old. And so I knew they probably have much more experience than me. I knew it was impossible for me to sound like them. But I thought, I should keep trying, and maybe I did believe it was possible. I don't know. But the idea is that I didn't have any kind of realistic or pessimistic outlook on my prospects for drumming. I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to sound just like Travis Barker from Blink-182 because I know the only difference between me and him is a lot of skill, we'll say, a lot of practice. And so if I just practice enough to sound just like him and I study him enough, I'm going to eventually be as good as him. I'm going to sound just like him. And I know that even if I ever got to be I know that if I ever got to be as technically good as him and played the exact same thing that he played, I would not sound like him. You could still put on headphones and you could probably, especially if you really knew his drumming, listen to me try to play his stuff and I could accurately mimic what he played, but it wouldn't sound like him. He sounds like him and I sound like me. Now, of course, if I just took that one influence and forever just tried to mimic him, it would be really, it'd be kind of lame. It'd be like, okay, that dude's just trying to sound like Travis Barker all the time. That's not cool. That's kind of, why can't he be more creative? But let's say, I was obsessed with learning how to be like Travis Barker for a while and I kind of got technically good enough to do it. And then at the same time, maybe I started listening to, who's the guy? Is it Nate Smith? Is that his name? The guy that's been playing, all the videos are going on recently, the guy who plays this really simple grooves and has a really great feel. I think that's his name. Because he played that recent song with Wolfpack that everyone's going nuts about. Anyway, let's say I also got obsessed with him at the same time. And so I started incorporating some of his playing into it. Well, now I've got these two really different influences that are impacting me at the same time. And all along the way, I am attempting and failing to sound like either one of them completely. And in the result, what I end up sounding like is Daniel. I end up sounding like me. But if I have no target, I have no aim for my playing and my development, I'm probably not going to sound like much of anything, and I definitely am not going to be extraordinary. And so I want you, I don't care how old or young you are, to get obsessed a little bit with certain drummers and pursue trying to mimic them as much as you can. Act like you have no shame and you don't care about being only original all the time. It is some of my, this is the last thing I'm going to say, I know this podcast is going kind of long, but some of my favorite, I create all the backing tracks for my Instagram videos that I post. And some of my favorite backing tracks that I've created in my favorite compositions overall, including the drumming, has been when I have in my own mind said, you know what, I'm going to try to mimic a song that this artist would play or that artist would play. And I try to record everything, write everything from that perspective. And I never end up sounding like that artist. I don't, but I fall short. I fail, but I fail in a very unique way that has my fingerprints all over it. And so it ends up sounding original in my own way. And so I want to encourage you to do the same thing. Find those influences, obsessively pursue them, and then be okay with failing to live up to whatever it is you think you should do to sound like them. But then embrace the uniqueness that you get as a result of that. And so go out there and do that in your drumming this week. I can't wait to talk to you again on this podcast. Like I said, hopefully all the tech holds up and it all comes through seamlessly for you. Hey, by the way, if you're interested in joining me in either down in person here in Nashville for an in-studio experience where you get to do a recording session and have yourself on a professional recording session with a producer and an engineer, or if you want to do some one-on-one deep dive training with your drumming, with your playing, send me an email, let me know. Again, I still haven't put the details together for that all the way, so if you send me an email, you're not signing up for anything, you're just letting me know you want to know more about it when all those details come together. And you can email me at daniel@danielhadaway.com. All right, thanks for joining me on Drummer Daily. We'll talk again real soon. Bye for now.